Some stories refuse to behave in a tidy manner. They do not build neatly toward a climactic revelation. They offer no definitive explanation, and they do not resolve into a moral or neat lesson. Instead, they remain where they were placed and stare back at anyone who tries to fold them into a tidy framework. The Sandown Ghost Clown is one of those stories. It does not roar, it does not menace, it does not snatch, punish, or curse. It appears, communicates in a way that does not quite fit, and then it leaves. What lingers afterward is not ordinary fright. It is a peculiar, persistent wrongness, like an off-color joke told by someone who does not quite understand humor, or like a sentence left unfinished in a paragraph that otherwise makes perfect sense. This is the case of All Colors Sam, the Sandown Clown.
Two witnesses. December, Rendlesham. 3 lights, no radar return. Right. If it's real, someone's going to want it buried.
The incident occurred in 1973 at Lake Common, a neatly kept expanse of grass on the Isle of Wight near the seaside town of Sandown. The witnesses were 2 children, both 7 years old. The being they encountered announced itself with a single sentence. The words were simple, plain, and strange. All colors, Sam. Lake Common itself was not a place where one expects legends to begin. It was open, maintained, and bordered by a golf course whose trimming and order seemed designed to impose a human measure on the landscape. It was a place for sunlight, for picnics, for ordinary afternoons, and the small rites of childhood. It was not a place that suggested sudden ruptures in reality.
Summer 1973, Sandown was unsettled by a mysterious visitor. Some questions remain.
2 children saw something no one could explain. Half a century later, the place is still quiet, but the story lingers.
It's the kind of place where children wandered freely, where silence was common and unremarkable. In 1973, the Isle of Wight was not a hotspot for sensational stories or media-driven hysteria. It was quiet, almost too quiet. On that day, 2 children, one of them a girl often referred to as Faye, were playing outdoors, immersed in the innocent, unstructured world of childhood. There was no expectation of danger, no sense of anticipation. The world, as they knew it, was stable. Then the sound began. It was not music, not speech, not the voice of an animal. The children later described it as a loud, wailing noise, mechanical, oscillating, almost siren-like. It did not rise and fall naturally, nor did it echo in a way that matched the environment. It felt placed, as though it had been introduced into the landscape rather than produced by it. The sound did not frighten them at first. It beckoned. That detail alone is chilling. The encounter did not begin with fear, but with curiosity, an invitation rather than an intrusion. Something was calling, and the children answered, following the sound. Drawn forward by the strange noise, the children moved toward its source. Each step carried them further away from the familiar and deeper into something undefined. The sound neither faded nor grew louder in a predictable way. It simply persisted, as though maintaining a deliberate distance. Unlike many paranormal encounters that occur in flashes or fragments, this moment unfolded slowly. Time did not distort. Reality did not blur. There was no sudden rupture. Instead, the children walked calmly into an experience that would haunt researchers for decades. When the source of the sound finally revealed itself, it did not rush toward them. It did not hide. It stood, waiting. The first sight of the entity. In an open area, framed by trees and muted daylight, stood a tall, humanoid figure. It was over 7 feet in height, with limbs that appeared elongated and proportions that felt subtly wrong. Not grotesque enough to provoke immediate terror, but wrong enough to make the mind hesitate. The children did not run. This is one of the most unnerving aspects of the case. Despite the entity's unnatural appearance, there was no immediate panic. Instead, there was observation. The children watched, and the figure allowed itself to be watched. Its appearance has been described repeatedly as clown-like, but not in the way one might expect. There was no painted grin, no exaggerated cheer. The resemblance lay in its simplicity and artificiality. It wore clothing that appeared mismatched and outdated, as though assembled from an incomplete understanding of human attire. A pointed hat or hood sat atop its head, giving it a vaguely ceremonial silhouette. Its face was the most disturbing feature. Pale and circular, it bore simple geometric shapes where human features should have been. Triangular eyes, a square nose, yellow lips. The children could not determine whether they were looking at a mask, a costume, or something organic. The face did not change expression. It did not blink in a familiar way. It simply existed. The children's reaction is perhaps the most discomforting element of the story. Children often provide an unfiltered response, but in this episode there was very little melodrama. The figure did not storm them or lunge at them. Instead, it produced a small notebook and a pencil. It began to write. When it had finished, it held the notebook up for the children to read. The words in clear, simple handwriting read, "Hello, and I am all colors, Sam."
Hello? Are you still there?
Hello, and I am all colors, Sam.
The phrase presented itself without explanation. There was no attempt to elaborate, to justify, or to offer context. The figure then tried to speak. The voice the children reported was off.
Hello, are you still there?
It sounded metallic and mechanical, as though English were not a language learned, but an instrument approximated by an unfamiliar vocal apparatus. Some syllables came through, others dissolved into noise. When asked whether it was a man or a human being, the being offered no human answer. It said, vaguely, that it existed differently and that it was here, but not always here. The children moved closer and heard the voice again. Sam's lips barely moved, and its words were muffled, like someone speaking without fully opening their mouth. Sam asked the children some questions, and they returned the favor. When they asked why its shirt and pants were torn, Sam said it had no other clothes. Asked if it was a man, Sam chuckled and said, no. When they asked if it was a ghost, it replied, well, not really, but I am in an odd sort of way. Pressed about what it was, if not a man or a ghost, Sam answered, you know. It then claimed to have no name, despite having introduced itself earlier, told them others like it existed, and sketched a rough image of one of its kind.
There are others, like me, here on Earth.
Sam also said it was afraid of humans and feared being hurt. While the children talked, they noticed two workers on a nearby electrical pole who seemed oblivious to the scene. Afterwards, Sam invited the children into the small metal hut it said it had just finished building.
Hello, are you still there? Come in, it's warm inside.
They crawled through a flap into a room with simple wooden furniture, an electric heater, and a high ceiling. The walls were covered in a blue-green wallpaper patterned with dials. It was unclear whether the dials were merely decorative or actually mechanical. The children mentioned a small upper-level room with a metal floor, though it's uncertain if they went up. Inside, Sam removed its hat, revealing round white ears and sparse brown hair. The conversation continued for at least 30 minutes. Sam said it ate berries picked in the late afternoon, drank purified river water, and had visited a mainland camp. It also performed what Faye called a conjuring trick. Sam placed a berry in its ear, thrust its head forward until the berry reappeared by one eye, then, with further movements, made it vanish and reappear at its mouth. Eventually, the children said goodbye, left the hut, and on their way home across a golf course, told a man they had seen a ghost, or someone dressed like one, before returning home. 3 weeks later, on June 2nd, Faye told her father, known only as Mr. Y, about the strange events. He was hesitant at first to take the story seriously.
He had a red nose and shoes this big, and when he smiled, it was all paint. He popped out of nowhere right by the lane.
But Faye, a clown? Are you certain? There must be an explanation. It's all rather strange, isn't it?
Excuse me, I'm looking for the parents of the boy who spoke about the clown. It's quite important.
You're speaking to them?
But he eventually followed up with the boy, who confirmed his daughter's account. Mr. Y visited the site of the encounter but found no trace of the metal hut or any sign of Sam. He had not told Faye, however, that he had experienced unusual events himself over the previous 2.5 years. Around 7 p.m. on October 20th, 1970, while driving east to see a friend and ride on the northeast coast of the Isle of Wight, Mr. Y saw a very large lit object in the sky to his right, about halfway between the road and the village of Bembridge. He stopped the car to watch as the object hovered silently over swampland connected to the Yar River.
What in heaven? That's no aircraft. Let's see where you mean to go. They're climbing. Good Lord.
Drifting aimlessly at a low altitude. Mr. Y described 7 or more large spherical lights arranged in a wide ring, each like a bright red cherry, with a turquoise light and a white light between each red one. When he resumed driving, the object followed alongside him until he left the town. It then moved across his path until it was roughly 300 yards behind him. The craft slowly descended and drifted over some hedges.
Easy now. Steady.
Mr. Y stopped again and used a flashlight to try to signal it. From a greater distance, the object appeared smaller, and only 4 red lights were visible, now seeming to rotate slowly. Mr. Y signaled for 10 minutes while the craft weaved back and forth, as Oliver described it. He drove on, and the red lights were still visible when he arrived at his friend's house. Once his friend joined him outside, they watched the craft dart in and out from behind trees, one of the men comparing it to a game of hide-and-seek.
Look there, by the elm. It's quick as a sparrow. We're losing it.
Mr. Y later drove to Ryde and lost sight of it. In the months that followed, Mr. Y reported seeing several solitary balls of red light that hovered or followed him. On March 1st, 1972, at Compton Bay on the island's southwest coast, an unexpected tidal surge forced him up onto a cliff, where he was stranded until the tide receded. He then noticed 2 yellow lights just below the water surface about 40 feet away, looking up at him like the eyes of some terrible sea creature. Mr. Y had never told Faye about his experiences before her encounter with Sam, but he believed her experience was connected to his own and felt he should tell someone.
Rendlesham, 3 lights, no radar return. What are you? If it's real, someone's going to want it buried. Need the radar logs before they disappear.
Where are they now? After the encounter with the strange figure later referred to as Sam, Mr. Y reacted with unusual restraint and care. Rather than dismissing the children's account as imagination or exaggeration, he took their descriptions seriously and wrote down what they reported in detail. His approach was calm and deliberate, focused on accuracy rather than excitement. From the beginning, he treated the incident as something genuinely strange, not something to be dramatized. Mr. Y eventually submitted the account to the British UFO Research Association, BUFORA, one of the primary investigative groups operating in the United Kingdom during the 1970s. The case was later examined and preserved by researcher Jenny Randalls, who recognized its unusual consistency and ensured it was archived without sensational treatment. Mr. Y insisted on anonymity throughout the process and refused all publicity, which is why he has remained known only by a pseudonym. After filing the report, Mr. Y withdrew completely from paranormal research circles. He later moved abroad and did not take part in interviews, documentaries, or follow-up investigations. He never attempted to profit from the story and never publicly changed or retracted his position. He remained convinced that his daughter and her friend had been truthful and that the encounter could not be easily explained. Mr. Y died several years later, though the exact date and circumstances of his death were never made public. Some say sometime around 2005. His anonymity was maintained until the end of his life, and no personal records or statements surfaced afterward to contradict the account. His death effectively closed the door on any further clarification from the adult most closely involved in reporting the incident. Faye, his daughter, grew up and lived a largely private adult life, well removed from the paranormal community. As an adult, she briefly reaffirmed that she stood by her childhood account and that the experience had been real and memorable, not a dream or a misunderstanding. She did not seek attention, give interviews, or involve herself in discussions about the case. The absence of later commentary from both Mr. Y and Faye is one of the most unsettling aspects of the Sandown Clown case. There were no dramatic reversals, no confessions, and no attempts to exploit the story for attention or profit. Instead, the case ended quietly, with a disturbing report carefully filed and then left alone, unchanged, unresolved, and oddly intact. Hey, thanks a whole lot for watching, and this video was requested by this YouTube user, and if you like your video idea heard, don't forget to comment, like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you, and have a good night.